All right, hi. I'm here with Jonnalee Davis.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, so Jonnalee, April is being recognized as Autism Month, and you are a mom of kids with autism.
Yes, that's
So,
right.
can you please tell me a little bit of what that is like working with kids with autism and how you found out?
Okay, so how I found out, I'll start there, is that from about, I would say, the age of 12 months, I realized that they were not developing as my daughter was developing. I
Mhm.
know that normally they say that you shouldn't use other children as a marker, but as a parent, it's natural. You're gonna, weigh them against each other in that regard where development is concerned. So I realized that they weren't talking, that was a big milestone.
Right.
They weren't talking at that point. They had just started to walk at around the 12 months marker, and then I realized that there is some sort of delay, but it was cemented at 18 months, where the difference was drastic at that point,
Right.
because by then they were severely delayed in speech,
Right.
especially. Yeah, so that's how I found out.
All right. So, can you walk us through that process of how you went about getting the details? Did you go to like a regular doctor, or is there a specialist that you had to go to?
Well, at that point, they did have a pediatrician, but they said to just wait it out. We
Right.
have to wait it out because they're too young, they're still developing. So it was just a waiting game. But what I do, I went to Google and
Mm-hmm.
I looked, I researched, what this would be, what it would be likened to, what it could likely be, and I found everything turned up like speech delay, global developmental delays, and
Right.
autism. So that's where I kind of, got the idea that it could be that we're dealing with. But I wasn't too focused so much on the diagnosis rather than trying to get intervention for
Right.
them. Yeah.
So, all right. So, tell me a little bit about some of the intervention that you got.
Well, initially in the waiting stage, it was mainly just me stimulating them at home. So, like, I'd play with them with the building blocks, and I'd show them words, like even on my phone, because I didn't have the flashcards then.
Right.
But I eventually got flashcards to just show them words and try to stimulate language. And I also spoke with them as though they were talking as they should,
Right.
Yeah, even now, that's what I still do. But I had gotten them assessed, I think it was at around age 2, they're about 2.5.
Where did you
And
go to get them assessed?
it was a child guidance clinic.
And
I
where
had
is that
taken them
located?
there,
Because
the Comprehensive Health Center downtown. I think it's near the Kingston Public Hospital.
okay.
Yes, so
So,
that's where I spoke with a pediatrician. There, she was their pediatrician. She worked there, and she did an assessment. I
right.
believe it's called the MCHAT, and then she referred them to Macam Development Center. That's on Oak Road or Old Oak Road, I believe.
Right.
Yes, where they were formally assessed.
All right. So after that assessment, what was it like at home and dealing with the kids at that time?
Well, it was a tall order, especially the fact that it's not just one of them, it's two, because I have twin boys. I have a daughter as well.
Right.
She was born before them. So it was a challenge navigating that, because I don't know, at the time, I didn't know anyone who was dealing with that issue,
Right.
and it was like it was the first of its kind. And I just had to hit the ground running,
Mm-hmm.
and just try to gather as much information. My main resource was the internet,
Right.
and luckily on the internet, you have a community of people who would have been dealing with the same issue, and that's where I gained most of my support.
All right. So just browsing through, I've seen some organizations. So did you reach out to any of these organizations, and which, and did you get any assistance from these organizations?
Okay, yes, I did. Color of Autism, it's American based, and they actually offer parent training.
Right.
because I wanted to do that, because I realized that a major challenge was that when you try to get them enrolled into speech therapy, ABA therapy, that's applied behavioral therapy,
Right.
and all of that, the wait list, they're so extensive that you cannot get a date. And, so I resorted to doing that, and to just look up even local programs as well. There is one that is being offered with the theology seminary, and they do ABA therapy. I thought of
Right.
enrolling in that as well, but I did not, and I think my coach, they said that we would have to wait until they're 4 in
Right.
order for them to be assessed. So I had gone ahead and applied to early stimulation program for them. That's with the government.
So is it that you're solely dealing with home right now? Are they in school?
They're in school at the moment.
All right. So is it like a regular school, or is it that there's a school that specialize in dealing with kids that are on the spectrum?
Well, initially they went to regular school,
Right.
but then I enrolled them into a school that specializes. It's mixed, so they have holistic children and
Right.
autistic children there. Because I think it's important for them to be around children who are, neurotypical as
Right.
well, because they live in a world where the majority of us are deemed to be neurotypical. So I thought it was important to have that mix so that they could integrate well.
So how do you find that balance with them in school right now?
I find that it is helping to some extent, but the major thing is not just to get them enrolled in a school that specializes, because therapy as well is a major part. So the school is responsible for, having them there and fostering their needs and, taking care of their special needs. However, it runs parallel with therapy as well, or it
Mm,
should run parallel with therapy.
okay. All right. So I've done some research and I find that the government is lacking when it comes on to children that are on the spectrum. What's your thought on that?
Quite so, quite so, I must say. I think that there is much to be done, and I wouldn't have known, because this is a new frontier to me, and I've just been made aware of it because of the situation with my children. But I'm realizing that first and foremost, getting them assessed is a major challenge,
Mm-hmm.
because where the government is concerned, and it's not to politicize it, but I say government in terms of governance, just, um, where they're concerned, the assessment centers is like they're burdened. I
Right.
don't know if it's that they don't want to help so much as they probably don't have the manpower, really and truly, because I hear that this thing, it is becoming now so rampant.
Yeah, because when I did my research, they said that at least 700 children is born on the spectrum per year that is autistic. So I would presume that's something that the Ministry of Education would want to advocate for and deal with. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's really putting or being political in any way, because at the end of the day, we have to look out for our children.
Yeah.
And not because they're on the spectrum or they're autistic, it doesn't mean that we have to write them off. So
That's
of
it.
course we would want to make some kind of provision for children who are on the spectrum.
Yes, that's correct. And I concur with that statement, because they're here.
Right.
They're here. And the children are our future. So, we have to invest in them, whether they're holistic or they're on the spectrum. It does not matter. We have to find ways to ensure that they are not left behind.
Right.
And I know that where it comes on to the ones that are deemed to be geniuses, the savants, that's normally the face of autism, where you say, oh, he's autistic, he's a genius, or she's autistic, she's a genius. The reality is that not all of them are geniuses. It's a
Right.
spectrum, and
And
we need to
even if
respect
they're
that.
genius, you still would want to put them in a space that they feel comfortable as well.
Exactly.
Because once they know something already, they don't find fun in going it over. So I feel like, the Ministry of Education has to find a space for kids on the spectrum?
I believe so. It is definitely needed because most of us parents, I realize that we resorted to just placing them in regular schools, which they don't have the means of taking care of them.
Right.
The first school I enrolled them in, they really did a good job to the extent of to which they could,
But they were
but
lacking.
ultimately they were lacking because it's
Right.
not a special education school. And when you factor in cost as well, and because this thing, it's I realize that a lot of parents know it's not just that you have one child on the spectrum, you have two, you understand, or even some three. So where that is concerned, I believe that there should be institutions that, we have them and they're geared towards just upbringing and rearing these children and
Right.
bringing out the best in them.
So, for parents that are at home that are dealing with this issue, just like oh, you were a first-time parent, what advice would you give to those parents?
Well, I would say first and foremost, see beauty in your child.
Right.
It's not that your child is defective. It's not that this thing is a defect. I would say it's just who they are, and it's just the way they start. If you look at a race, there is a starting point and there's
Right.
a finish point, and there's also an in between. So you have to take that journey with them to ensure that you aim them well to the finish
Right.
line, and if you don't run the race with them, then where will they end up? You have to teach them, teach them, stay the course with them, advocate for them. You be their voice, because my boys, they're nonverbal at the moment. And I say at the moment because I know that, with intervention and with encouragement, they will speak, because they
Right.
tend to, be delayed, and
Mhm.
some of them eventually go on to speaking. So I would just say it's your child and you have to be that voice for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Alright, so for parents who might say, "Oh, I don't have the money to make certain steps to ensure that my child is still going to get an education or I'm going to get the proper assessment," what advice would you give to that parent?
I would say advocate. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's where advocacy comes in. Your voice matter. Your voice, it matters. You have to kick down the doors that are closed, and really and truly, if you don't come out and say, there is a need for this, and this thing needs to change, then it will never change. It
Right.
will never change, because it's like there you won't know to what extent we're dealing with this as a nation if you just sit at home and you're silent about it. You have to speak up.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. It's expensive, but at home I would say do your own little therapy research. Do they learn through repetition, as do every other child, or
Right.
whether they're on the spectrum or not. Children learn through repetition. So just use those things and use Google, use the internet, find resources, look up ABA therapy, home therapy. You will find resources that you can use to help you to an extent. But the key is advocating for them, I would say.
Okay. All right. So we have the march that's coming up on April 6th for autism, for the autism month, and it's also for funding for the Jamaica Autism Academy. What is your advice for persons out there that are listening on when it comes on to coming out to support?
My advice would be to come out, whether or not you have an autistic child, whether you have a child with ADHD. It does not matter. Come out and support,
Right.
because as I would have said earlier, it's an issue that we're dealing with as a nation. So you don't wait until it is in your backyard to attack the issue. Let's come out and be the voice of the children, because they are our future.
All right. And finally, I want to know, how is it that you find the strength to cope with the challenges that you have, especially dealing with two, but not one?
Well, for me, I am a Christian. I'm a believer in Christ, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where I draw my strength. to be honest, knowing that he entrusted them to me. He looked at me, and like all his other creations, he saw that I was good. He saw that I would be a good mom to them,
Right.
and he chose to entrust me with these beautiful children, you know. And that's where I draw my encouragement from, really, my faith.
All
Yeah,
right, Jonnalee, thank you so much. I
you're
appreciate
welcome.
you talking to me. And I would love to say, guys, please come out on April 6th and support the walk for autism. It is also in support of the Jamaica Autism Academy that is in the works. So please come out on April 6th and support.